So we're looking at installing Jest today, and we're going to look at the dev dependencies that we need for Jest. And there's mainly 3 dev dependencies. We're going to get into using these in subsequent tool videos as well. And the dev dependencies we need are the 2 baby plugins and Jest itself. So we've got this plugin transform runtime and a preset -env. So those are the 2 we need to do our ES module conversions to pure JavaScript. There's also no daemon in there, which I will be installing, but we don't actually need that for what we're going to be doing. We've also got this configuration down the bottom here. So I'm just going to get into actually implementing this now. So we just go up to the top and go to open folder, and I'm going to create a new development folder in here so I can keep everything separate so nothing gets confusing for you as I go through this tutorial, and it's all in one place. So I'm just going to call this dev2 for the time being, and in here we're going to create our folder for our actual project or our program itself, our site, wherever we're actually creating at the time being. So a new folder in here, and I'm going to call this post art, because I'm going to have it as a fictitious posting of articles to a endpoint, or post of artwork to an endpoint. So I'm just going to create a folder in here called post art, and we'll begin using this folder for our npm project, our Node project. So using Visual Code, that will actually cd into that folder, and we can actually start opening up a new terminal. We can see we've cd'd into the dev2 folder, and I'm just going to do an npm init. So we're in the post art folder, npm init, and here I'm going to just take the defaults. Now I'm using standard JavaScript, I'm not using TypeScript. I'm just going to keep stuff simple for the time being, and we're just going to take all the defaults and hit yes for that one. So we've initialized our project. We've got a package.json appeared, very simple package.json, and we notice that we've got a test section in there ready to go. So I'm going to install these 4 libraries now. I'm just going to put these all into one line, and I'm going to copy and paste this line with an npm install. You can use yarn or whatever you want to for this install, but I'm using npm. So I'm just going to copy, and I'm going to type in npm I -d, and then I'm going to paste those 4 packages in there. And this will take a little time to install, so we're going to probably fast forward to our next part of the installation. And from there we can actually carry on with our project. We can see that the package.json has actually updated, and those have all been installed. So now I can actually get into creating our TDD for this. So the first thing I'm going to do is that we'll just check that our node modules are there, because we haven't done this globally. This will be placed actually in the actual file system itself for the actual project. So I'm going to create a new file in here for our Babel config, so we can do transpile of modules back down to pure JavaScript, so ES modules, that is. So create a new folder called babel.config.cjs for configure.js, and I'm just going to paste these in there. What I'm going to do is paste these in there, but I'm going to run them out afterwards, because we can actually, as we come across these, we can actually enable certain parts of this module, so you can see which parts are actually solving the issues. So we've got a number of items in here. We've got preset env. Preset env is a small package that allows syntax transform, polyfills, and makes life a lot easier, and smaller bundles, etc. We'll come to that when we actually start to install it. And I use that with a target and a node equals current on there. So using that to compile against the current version of the node. Depending on what environment you're running this in, it will change. So that is a very simple package that we're using there to actually transpile and do our polyfills. We've also got this plugin transform runtime that I needed for certain libraries I found, and that one is just a very simple plugin that enables the reuse of Babel injector helper code to save on code size. Some modules I found will error unless this is installed. Again, we'll come to that at another date. So those are the actual Babel plugins that I'm going to be using for this install. And if we just jump back into our project, so I've got those in there. What I'm going to do for the time being is I'm just going to rem these out. So when we actually come to when these errors actually appear, we can show you actually how to actually resolve those with these individual parts. So let's go back into our project and create a new folder, and I'm going to call this one underscore test underscore. Now this is where our tests will live. Now we're going to create a test in here. I'm create a new file, and I'm going to call this postart.test.js. We can have multiple files in here for our tests. So that's there, and we're just going to create a standard template in here for actually describing our tests. And to do that, we use the command describe, and describe needs to be passed a string and a function. So the string describes the test, and the function, I'm going to use a fat arrow function, and that passes us along to the path that will actually run the test in. So that's an it, and that actually describes what the outcome it is. And that also takes a fat arrow function there as well. So we can use other non-function in there. I'm going to pass an async if we need to do an async function in there. If it's a non-synchronous, if it's a synchronous or asynchronous function, we have to actually change that depending on what we want to use. And at the moment, I'm just going to be using a non-async function, a synchronous function in there. And from here, we can actually describe our test. So that is actually the standard template. So description is literally the description of what we're trying to test, and the it is the outcome of what we're expecting to happen, basically. So that's our standard template. As simple as that. Now, when we actually expect a result, we use the words expect. So in here, I'm going to use a simple one just to show you what it actually does, and then I'm going to say expect true to equal true. So that should pass our test. So we do expect expect true dot to be true, and that should allow our test to actually pass. We should get a green tick, and off we go. Now to run this test, we first of all have to go off to the package.json and do a bit of setup in here. So initial setup of the actual test part here. At the moment we've got error no test specified. So if we do an npm run test in here, we should see that error. There we go, we've got the error no test specified. So we need to change that to our jest. So in here, very simple, and we just put the command in here called jest. Just type jest. Now I use a --env switch in here and set this to Node because of certain packages that I have that actually require this. Again, I'll show you what packages they are and reasons why we do this, but at this time we'll actually just use jest in there. And now we can actually run the npm run test, and what we should see is that will look for those files, those test files, and we should have one test file that appears and actually a passing test, because true will obviously equal true. So we'll just wait for this to kick in, and then we have a green tick because their test suites have run, one passed, and I can actually show you a failing test in here. I'm going to run that as to be false, and you can see the tests. We've got one test, one suite, and suite is the actual file, the actual number of files we've got there. So if we had 2 files, we have 2 suites. And as you can see, this test has failed. Expected false, received true. So that's a failing test. It shows you what test it's failed on, what line number. So that is the basics of setting up Jest for testing. So in the next video, we'll actually do the TDD and drive our development for it. If you like this video or any other videos on my channel, please pop over to my Ko-Fi site, or Ko-fi, however you want to pronounce it. And there you can actually support me by dropping me a few pounds, a few francs or dollars, whatever your currency is. All money will be churned back into the show, not just for buying me a coffee. And I'll be buying resources and equipment to actually produce and enhance my current videos on that site itself.